Hi there, welcome to the Dope Black Dad podcast with me, Darwood Grace, your host today, because Marvin disappeared somewhere and he's on his way. And I'm joined with the lady, the Right Honourable Romantha.
Hello. And today we're talking about love. From school.
No, I should reinvent them.
You should. Welcome. Welcome.
That is a very
Thank
nice
you for joining us.
Thank you, ma'am. How you doing?
Not
We were
bad.
just gossiping about you.
Use what?
We were just gossiping about you.
Gossip? Oh, no. The thing is, I get to watch it later on, but I don't know if that's fun, though. I don't like discovering, like, what are you, two people that have known me for too long and too intimately to just, like, I spent so much time with you in the last couple of months. All the secrets you know that you know none of your business. If you're at home, mind your business.
Look at the tone of the conversation just went.
Yeah, I know. Was it all righteous and highlights?
No, it wasn't. We were talking about...
Talking about love and Valentine's Day and all that good stuff.
Oh. What was you doing for Valentine's Day? Who was your interrupting piece? Who's Wow. It's
Why
like
are
we
you
don't know.
guns blazing? I feel like you should...
So I came off hot of a debate show, so it's like I feel
Oh,
the debate.
nah. You
So
calm
you're still
down.
heated.
You calm down and
Yeah.
we'll continue.
Just telling these right wing people, well, go on. So go on, continue. Where's our guest? What happened? Where's our?
I guess it's coming.
Oh, okay,
around
cool.
the same... ran late, but around the same time.
Oh, okay, cool. No, go on, talk your stuff. Sorry, I'm just here. My own business.
Yeah, sorry, what were you saying, Dawood?
About writing letters
Oh,
to
yeah.
your partner.
Yeah.
Because everyone texts and phone calls now.
And FaceTime.
Like, even people in relationships now, when last did you have, like, a 2-3 hour phone conversation with your spouse?
Like
And
phone
you're
call.
in the same place. Like, go to the bedroom one day and the other person be in another room and just have a chinwag. Like, when you first met. Just do it. It reinvigorates stuff. And
And I think it triggers something in your brain
Yeah.
that this is the romantic phase again, all over.
Yeah. Like, I think every couple, every now and again, should just go, cool, let's just have a reset button. Press the reset.
I think they should spend a week apart. I think they would genuinely benefit from just like some space and like some newness.
Yeah.
As you said, everyone wants a little new. What a quote that was from about 2 weeks ago.
So,
Yeah.
what was your Valentine's Day like?
I spent it with young Luke.
Oh, Lukey.
Yeah, I spent it with Luke.
Luke
Because
is
he
the
was on half
cutest
term.
baby ever.
Have we explored the fact that made women's ovaries explode seeing a child?
100%.
Oh, okay.
100. I don't want them. I don't want kids. But Luke made me think.
Yeah.
Just 1%. Just 1% of my brain was like, are you sure? How sure are you? How sure are you? All right, so I have a share around piggybacking off of our conversation around love and relationships and etc. And I saw this TikTok about a week ago of this woman was like, did we fly too close to the sun? In terms of feminism and just being independent women saying we don't need men really, we can do it on our own, let's go get our careers, let's go travel and not focus on careers and relationships. So I'm going to play it real quick. And I want to discuss. So glad
Personally,
you
I think this is a great one.
have arrived because I need a
Sorry.
woman's perspective on this one as well. I'm going to play it and I need your opinions on this because I have plenty.
Okay.
In the most selfish way possible, sometimes I do have to look at my friends and think maybe we took being single a bit too far. Maybe we cheered each other on in our singleness a bit too much. Some would even argue that maybe we took feminism too far, because I'm looking around the group and thinking, not even one wedding is on the horizon. Not even that it's not on the horizon. We are actually so single that we are at the point where I wouldn't even go into a shop and pick up an expensive dress and think, I'll save this for a wedding. Like, I cannot think of a single one of my friends who is nearing marriage. And as I said, for entirely selfish reasons, I'm just like, we're gonna need to rectify that, because I personally need to be at the weddings in my prime. I need to be at that open bar having my your name moment. Like, it just really does seem like something I'm gonna have to delve into in my 20s, and time is running out. Unfortunately, time is running out. 5 years down, like, we are gonna need the weddings to start rolling in. But as I said, I do believe that we have cheered each other's singleness on a bit too much, and I just don't know if I will be seeing a wedding before the decade is out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Go on. Expand on what you've observed.
So, in my personal life, I don't have friends. I have a couple now that's going to get married, but it's the first couple in, I would say, my adult life from my close friends that are getting married. And it's not out of a lack of trying and dating and women just not being interested. It's just their circumstances that they haven't found someone. But they've become so happy in being single that it makes it more and more difficult to now go into a relationship, because they're just so complacent and happy in their singleness that I don't get my wedding. I don't get to be the bridesmaid. I don't get to be drunk at a bar.
Is that your version of your wedding, that you're the bridesmaid?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I don't get my wedding. I don't get my bride of honor moment. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So it's a little bit concerning. And I also looked up some statistics around it, and it's really, really sad. The statistics for the UK says that marriage is down compared to 1991. Adults in 2021 are 44% more likely to have never been married. In 2021, 46.9% of individuals in England and Wales were married, down from 49.4% in 2011. So, yeah.
Can I ask?
It's at an all-time
You've been
low.
married. I know you've been married. Have you been married? No. I've been married. Have you been married?
No.
So should we just
So
talk?
we're equal.
Hi.
I just say that to say the two people in the room who have been married are also divorced. So I'm wondering why we're equating marriage with happiness, or the lack of marriage with sadness. And actually, I saw really, maybe you'll find this positive, but statistics.
Before you continue, can you just? I
What
just
have
want
I
you to look
got?
better. It's
It's
my
lipstick.
lipstick, and it's
It's your
It's not
lipstick.
great.
It's okay.
Kimberly's
an
having an
accident.
affair.
Let me see. A little bit more. Rub
I
it.
think you
It's
should get up and
okay.
take
It's
it off.
okay.
It's okay.
It's
Yeah, I'm with
Samantha's
Marvin. Yeah, do
lipstick,
that.
and I'm okay
Do
with that.
You made it sound like it was like I don't know, some weird thing. It's fine. It's acceptable. Go
Okay.
on.
Did I not blend my blush?
No,
It's
no.
okay,
Aw.
it's okay.
We saw it happen. It's fine. Go on.
Comparing.
Yeah, so they were saying that Gen Z and also Gen Alpha are going to have the healthiest relationships. They may not be married, because I think a lot of us are moving away from the institution that is religion, and marriage is closely associated with that. But they are going to have some of the healthiest and most long-term relationships, because in that generation, they're monitoring Gen Z's dating habits on dating sites.
Yeah.
And so a few things are changing, like race is no longer at the top of the kind of distinction between who you want and who you don't want, but also they are appreciating authenticity a lot more. So it's kind of like come as you are. And that's obviously a great start to any healthy relationship. So I've come in late to the conversation.
So the
of
come
course.
as
No,
you
you came in
are,
right
the
in
come
time.
as you are is not generally new. You know, I don't think that's a new feature, but it is interesting that race no longer plays, a role, which just expands your pool a lot more.
Yes.
And obviously, this is not to say that people are a lot more unhappier because they're not getting married. I'm saying that we are just not seeing weddings anymore.
So you don't get to wear pretty dresses.
I don't get to wear my pretty dresses. And I know this is not generally about me, but around where society is moving in terms of what the goals are. Marriage is no longer the end all and be all for a lot of people. So that's interesting to see that she equates it to feminism even.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't generally see the link there with feminism.
It's not even a healthy institution to aspire into. Like, I think the whole concept of marriage was about land ownership, and it was about knowing which of these children are yours, so you can pass your land down over to them. So marriage was a construct of like capitalism. Like 'cause it's a commercial deal.
Yeah.
So and also in
I
that
don't think
was
it started out as that.
no, that's literally the function of what marriage was that we all lived in the community. Then the community turned into actually these are my children, and industrialized. It's linked to industrialized farming, as far as I know it. So the land that you were given or that you had developed and reared, it was about who inherits that land, and it was like we need to know which children are mine. To know what children's mine, I need to know what woman is mine, who bared those children. So it's all about the industrial farming and capitalism that has connected this idea of like owning a woman to own the children to then be able to pass those things down. For me, I just find the whole in action, the concept overrides the individuals.
Yeah.
What you realize is no matter what you agree in the beginning, unless you remove yourself partly or majority from society as a whole, you start finding that society just treats you in a particular way and creates this context where your relationship ends up working in the basis of who earns more or who can provide more, and that becomes like a massive inequity. I hate the construct now. I don't rate it. I rate unions. I rate long-term relationships. I rate like capsules of like raising children in. But the actual concept of marriage needs to be completely imploded before we get anywhere near having like really healthy relationships. But by the way, there are some women and there are many men who still love the patriarchal relationship, marriage construct, and that's their right to do so. And they will continue it in their own guise. I think it's for people who live outside of those particular ways. Either you've had the experience and you're like, it's not for me, where most neurodivergent people naturally find those types of environments difficult to be into, whether you are queer or LGBT, they're in a completely different experience in terms of how your relationship is set up, maintained and managed. You actually create different rules when you're from outside of those particularly centered norms, and I think that's a really healthy way. I find those relationships make more sense to me than we're going to be together forever, by the way, and whatever happens, under the eyes of God, we are committing to forever, regardless of what happens. But when we start talking about what happens in that traditional environment, some of it is particularly violent and actually like not sustainable. I wouldn't ask a woman to sit there and be in that environment, be unhappy, feel like they have to like look after the kids, clean the house, cook, work, and do all those things. And it's like, under that guise, if you don't do that, you're a bad wife. Like that for me is set fire to it all, please. Bun Babylon and all of his friends. I actually have a TikTok counter to this, or an explainer that was taking this to another level, so I'm gonna listen to it now. Hold on. Because I saw this the other day and it was really good.
The argument is what? That men simply are giving up hope on marriage because they're feeling beaten down?
No, I don't think they're giving up on hope on marriage. I think what they're doing is they're looking at it at the cost reward. Men look at things in terms of cost analysis. And the penalties for marriage are so high and the rewards now are so low. First of all, there's legal costs of marriage. There are so many men now who are just saying, you know what, it's just not worth it to me. I'm going to be stuck paying the alimony. I'm going to be stuck paying for child support. And it's not just legal reasons. It's also psychological ones where men feel that basically they don't really have rights in marriage. Women hold all the cards now in reproduction, all kinds of things, and men don't.
Well, that's all true. I mean, I agree with that completely. But it still doesn't absolve men of the responsibility to stop complaining about how the cards are against them and man up and become men, because you don't become a man until you assume responsibility.
What man would take such a raw deal? I don't consider that a man.
Well, it's not a raw deal. You derive deep satisfaction as a man by taking responsibility for other people. That's the only place you get deep satisfaction.
So men are supposed to take a really bad deal and sign their rights away, and you call that a good deal. Look, you would understand economic rewards. You did, well, that's good, and maybe you have a really good wife, but a lot of men don't feel that way.
I always hear this, man.
So I just want to caveat that very quickly, is because it's so interesting having a woman tell a man that men are having a bad deal. Obviously, she's done this for a book, so she's done an element of research and insight into gaining this perspective. But to see her counter another guy, and I think this sort of idea of like masculinity being like God and providing and protection is such a sort of white European view of how it should be done. It doesn't make it completely void, but it's so specific. And the people who can excel at doing those things, like to protect your family, it means that you have to genuinely believe the state is going to protect you to a certain level. If you don't believe the state's going to protect you, how do you protect a family if you can't call the police? Or if you think if you call the ambulance, they're going to look at your measurements incorrectly or not believe that you're truly in pain, or they'll section you for mental health issues. So the reality is that picture is a very white Eurocentric normative way of looking at what men should be doing, looking after people. Because if you also work in low income jobs, which unfortunately disproportionately black people do, you are not able to provide for a family in this climate, because it's not the 1960s where your median level paid job can provide you house, groceries, abundance, a holiday and a washing machine. The days have completely shifted. So I did find that really interesting, but I would love to hear anyone else's thoughts on what that woman was saying.
Who was she?
She was an author of a book. I'm going to try and find her name. And I don't think I can because it doesn't say, because it's TikTok and that's not what they do. But yeah, the guy's name is Tucker Carlson. It was on his show.
I think I recognized his name. Yeah.
You laughed.
I did. I found the conversation funny. I don't agree with you that that idea of masculinity is white, a white construct. I think it's quite global, the culture or the idea that men are providers, but I just don't know if it fits in 2024 the same way that it may have done in, I don't know, ancient times.
Why do you not agree?
I don't think it's that men get a bad deal in marriage. I think everyone gets a bad deal when it comes to marriage. I don't think,
say it.
I don't think the bad deal is so gendered. And when I speak, because I do think that there are people that are recreating ideas of what marriage is, right? There are people who aren't necessarily sticking to traditional roles or concepts of marriage, and the role that I play and the role that you play. There are stay-at-home dads now, and women working, and men being the child rearers and stuff like that. So I'm not necessarily speaking about those people, because I think those people are trying to establish a sense of commitment and security while also trying to shape it in a way that fits maybe better to modern life. And I well done for trying. But I think people who stick to a more traditional concept of marriage, I think everyone kind of loses out, because I think men are limited in their expression as whole beings, and I think women are limited in their expression as whole beings. And I think anything that encourages you to limit how you explore yourself completely is a bad deal. So that's just from that aspect. I think legally it becomes a bad deal when you get divorced.
Tell us more.
And it's because it's just you're trying to make something that was one unit now makes sense as two separate units, and everyone's going to walk away from that feeling like they got a bit of a bad deal, right? That's just I just think it just comes hand in hand with trying to make something that's supposed to fit in one home now fit in two. So I think legally everyone gets a bad deal, and just spiritually, holistically, as a person, if you're trying to do it traditionally, I think it limits you as a person.
So how do you take a old concept, make it new without the old concept? Because the reason why I say the old concept wins is because society still just treats you, regardless of what you say. You could say that me and my husband, my wife can do whatever she wants. She has these types of roles, she works. But society, if you go into like even sort of legally and benefits and paternity leave, it all just very much takes you back to that dynamic where men get paid more. And so if we say the child is now 3 months old, who's going to be at home? Well, whoever doesn't earn more should stay there, because I need to make as much as I humanly can for our family. So it creates inequality at its foundations anyway. And I think this is why I say creating a relationship in a new way is amazing. Like, please find new ways. But I think most of it doesn't come with like a nice shiny brand to say this is what it is. So most people just either don't respect those or acknowledge those relationships in the same way. But I would love to hear from non-married people, like based on how you look at it from the outside now, would you get married into this institution as it is? Like, would it work for you?
I've said this before. I am not particularly interested, excited, or invested in getting married. Marriage to me would have to be a very practical thing. For instance, legally, I need documents, or it makes sense to bind our assets together for financial reasons because we're both on an equitable foundation financially and we're growing a business together, etc. It's a business transaction more than anything. And tax-wise, I might get more benefits from that. But if that's just business, then why would I not just have a business partnership instead of a marriage? Because of the divorce part, because of the separation is made so difficult, so taxing, so long in certain countries that it just exhausts you mentally, physically, financially, all of it. So I don't, marriage has just never looked ideal to me. So the more I hear about it, the more I don't want to do it. And unless I actively feel strong that there's going to be a financial or legal benefit for me, I don't necessarily see why, because we're not doing it for love anymore. We can get love. People realize that they don't need to be chosen for marriage to find true, genuine connection and love. And I think that's why we're seeing these numbers so critically low of people saying, I don't need to get married. My dating styles have changed. My prospects on life has changed. And I think I was when you said, when you were talking about getting married and dating, if you have marriage as an ideal in your mind when you meet someone or when you're dating someone in those initial stages, it impacts how your brain functions and how you see that person, because everything is through the tinted lens of marriage. And whether you like it or not, that bias is there. You're going to look at your wife shaking her ass in a strip club and you'll be like, I'm not comfortable with that because you're my wife. Yeah, we might have a traditional, non-conventional relationship or unorthodox marriage, but it still doesn't sit right with me. Why? Because society will put all of those voices in your head either way, whether you want to change or not. Society is still so fixed on what it is to be married, and especially on women. Men don't necessarily get the same flack for what it means to be a husband. I can't speak for men and their experiences of how they experience being a husband, but being a wife comes with a lot of scrutiny, judgment, a responsibility outside that society puts on you, not your husband. And then not even to talk about the in-laws, because very often they have their ideas of what a wife should be. So you can preach all you want to that we have an unconventional, unorthodox marriage. It's not traditional, so get with it. No one's going to get with it because marriage is still marriage. It's like the church. You can't just say the church is a rave now. It'll be church. Kanye West tried it.
The church is a rave now.
Kanye West tried it, and people were like, doing their thing to these new age churches, but the principle of church still stays.
Still stands. Darwood, what about you? You gonna get married? We got close. We had to create a shortlist this weekend, so we had a couple of candidates.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about marriage.
What's your barriers for you? How does that impact someone like you?
Well, marriage.
Yeah, the idea of it.
It just always felt constricting. Like when I was a kid growing up, I thought, oh, that's something to do to make me feel like an adult. But as soon as it came, I was like, as soon as I started thinking about just me and you for the rest of my life, my dick don't like that.
Wow.
That's the truth. That's how I was thinking when I was younger.
That's
So
a really
it's
good clear up, though. You said you was
Mm.
thinking when you were younger, because we're a grown up adult show and we wouldn't think that here. Cause,
But because we're grown up. But now I'm thinking, like, imagine meeting someone, you really don't know them. You can be 2, 3, 4, 5 years in. You really don't know them.
Yeah.
And you're gonna spend the rest of your time in a partnership with this thing that's you've been told how to do this thing, but it's you and that person, and you have to grow to learn each other. But there's this thing that tells you how to both be. That doesn't make sense.
So what would you say to someone who said, like, oh, my mum and dad have been married for 60 years? There's always someone that pops up with a 40-year marriage in the chamber.
How many of those examples exist? They're so rare. I've said it on this show before. One of the hardest things to do on this planet while you're alive is to have a successful relationship that lasts the distance. It's so hard to do. It's so rare to meet that person that you can have in your life that it's a rarity, and it's not going to be everybody's portion.
Yeah.
It just won't be. And if it's not your portion, and you do happen to meet a partner, don't put all these other things on top. Like, find out where you both are first. And having a union sounds way better than having a marriage that is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Have a union where the more you learn to be with each other, you can then start adding things too. But it doesn't have to be marriage. It could be kids. You can get a house together and do the journey of life together. So you've got a partner, but anything else doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Kimberly, you kind of alluded to divorce being difficult. You're not necessarily going into the specifics, but like, what are some of the things that made it feel extra unequitable and difficult when you were going through that?
I think I was raised to not air your dirty laundry, and the process of divorce is airing all of your laundry, the clean and the dirty. So that's very uncomfortable.
So in essence, you're incentivized to, I don't know, speak bad of that person or to present their worst of them.
I'll tell you something. The first time I attempted to get divorced, I found the lawyer incredibly aggressive. And I thought, no, that's
aggressive
not...
against you or against
them? No, not against me. Just the approach was aggressive. It was, to me, the law is, I get it, because I certainly learnt my lesson, but they're there to take care of you as the individual, right? And they're on your side. You're the one paying them. They're there for you. I have a very, I want to divorce this person, but I don't hate this person. This person, yes, there's reasons I want to divorce them, but they're not this entirely horrible, evil human being. And I found that in our meetings, you know, as you're discussing the relationship, the marriage, the children, the assets, the everything, one is incredibly clinical, but it's also kind of the narrative is this person is bad. Let's make sure that they don't get away with being bad. And that wasn't my mindset. So I found it quite aggressive. When I went back the second time, it was like, told you. And I was like, okay, I should have listened. They serve their purpose, but the process is uncomfortable because it's aggressive and it's,
So are you saying that so you go to the meeting and then because they know what happens in the process, they just come out on 10?
I think they also they see the worst of human nature.
Right.
They see people greedy, they see people being spiteful, they see the worst of people. Divorce lawyers, they're seeing a lot of shit, and it's just like they kind of know what to anticipate is coming, and they're kind of approaching it from that perspective. And like I say, they serve their purpose, right? Anyone, if your lawyer is trying to protect you, let your lawyer protect you. They're serving their purpose. But I found it as I actually don't have family members who've experienced divorce. So you don't have anyone to say, okay, this to coach you through it. It was my first time in that seat, and I just found it an aggressive process. And it's just horrible. Like I say, just airing your dirty laundry is horrible. I also think it encourages this, not greed necessarily, but you have to be so focused on your, what you're trying to get out of it, right? That it's very easy to get lost in that process because you're thinking about, okay, what do you deserve? And they'll put I find that they throw the kids in there. Like, oh, this is about the kids. But at the same time, in my experience, it's a smaller part of the conversation because when you're talking about assets, when you're talking about pensions, when kids aren't a part of that conversation. So I know family law says it's about the kids, but in the conversation, the kids don't feel so centered.
Because it's not really.
I think in a roundabout way it is.
It is in the sense that they want to create enough security for you so that you can provide. But they center the children as if like the children are sitting there waiting for an equitable division of your pension pot, which is not what they give an absolute toss about at all.
No.
But it means that you stay powerful and isn't that you don't have to rely on that man for support going forward. So
it's like the kids will benefit from you being financially stable, and that's how they're looking after the kids. But then for you to consider, okay, how do you come out, financially stable and okay and whatever, you getting to this mindset, okay, this is what I contribute, this is what I have, this is what I want, and the conversation it creates two separate camps. The nature of it.
Yeah.
So if you're ready, okay, we're no longer going to be together. That's the camps have been created, but then the conversations that you have while moving through the legal system, they kind of further amplify the fact that everything is now separate.
I have a question because, and I'm not quite sure if this was an American case or not, but I've heard that during the divorce process, there is a chance that your children might have to come in for almost as if to give some evidence in a way.
In the UK,
if there is
custody
a
hearings,
custody.
In
yeah,
the
if it's a
UK, it
custody.
happens if they're 10 years and older. So they will.
So the kids are not as sheltered from the process as.
If your child is 10 years and up, the court may say, okay, they would like to have the opinion of the child. So it's not like they're sat down in front of a judge or anything. They'll be with mediators or whatever. And
but that's only referring to like child access and stuff like that, isn't it?
It's referring to custody specifically.
That's only if there's a dispute and you can't come to an agreement.
If there's a
and the
dispute, you
court
can't
has to
come to an
decide.
agreement. Yeah, but what I do like about the divorce process in the UK, I don't know about it very much in the US, but you have to go through mediation. So if you disagree on things, you have to go through mediation. Mediation is a lot friendlier than mediating with lawyers, because you can also mediate with lawyers.
Yeah.
If you guys are like, mediation doesn't work, your lawyers can talk to each other. That's incredibly aggressive. But if you go to mediators, the mediator, and they take emotion out of it, which is really helpful, and they're just dealing with the facts of the situation. And even if the conversation goes left, the mediator is able to kind of regroup you, bring you back. And I find that mediators, they're a lot better at keeping things calm,
Yes.
I find, than lawyers.
Yeah. Well, because if the emotion is what keeps the billing going higher, because the more you hate them, the less you want to deal with them in an equitable way. So you end up just getting into an argument for a session. But at the same time, I found the mediation process drawn out unnecessarily. So I think because, like, from my perspective, our relationship was already unorthodox. So the end of it was very unorthodox in the sense that it was a very simple conversation. But what then made it longer and more complicated was that was the most complex part, because you had to do a minimum amount of sessions, which I think was like 6 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like, you have to do these 6 sessions. And so it felt like we agreed everything at the end of the first session. This is what we're doing financially. This is what we're doing with the children. It's been pre-agreed. Great. Okay, cool. So then it was like, right, so can we get so then he'll just ask questions about it more and more, which I felt like for the first 2 sessions was good, because it meant that it wasn't just us saying everything's fine, split. You genuinely got an idea of what was happening for both people. But then once we got everything written down and we had both signed it, it was like an evidence week. So we did a week of evidence. It's like, here's all the supporting evidence for what we have and what we're going to do. Great. Then it just felt like the next 2 sessions were just like, just checking in. But these are once a month sessions. So, and it's like, I think it's like $450 for like 200 and something, 275 each per session. So it's like, it just starts to add up, and you're like, I think we're done.
I'm not sure if they require, don't quote me, but I know I wasn't required to do 6 sessions. But there are things that you have to do, like the exchange of evidence.
Yes.
And when you come to an agreement on your divorce, the court, if you want it court ordered, so you can do everything without the courts. I don't advise you do that, because it's a mess. But if you do go through the court, if you agree something, the court then has to look at your agreement. The court looks at your financial situation, because the court has to be satisfied that it's a sustainable agreement. So you can't just, they avoid that. You can't just say, okay, we're just going to do this just to maintain. You can't do that, because the court like, well, is this sustainable? Is this viable? Can you afford this? And then they're like, okay, we agree to your agreement.
and you can go back and petition the court and be like, actually, the circumstances have changed, and I feel like I would like to make a claim or like to do things differently. So you can go back to it, and if they feel like there is enough grounds, like if it happened too quickly under duress without enough support and advice or whatever, you can go back. But I think the key thing is like breaking down a marriage. Would you do it again?
I would get married again.
I love that. That was exactly what I was about to say.
I absolutely would get married again. And the reason I would get married again is it's not for love. The first time I got married was for love, and because I was following a script that I thought you follow. You get married, you have your children, so on and so forth. now I would get married because it's an already kind of written, legally binding financial agreement. So things like, if I want to have a long-term relationship, which I do, I believe in long-term committed relationships, I would want that, for example, to keep the government out of my relationship as much as possible. So when it comes to the transfer of assets, the transfer of money between a husband and a wife, the government takes nothing from that. And I like that. Whereas if I'm a boyfriend and a girlfriend and we transfer assets between ourselves, the government takes a piece. So just for really mundane things
Practical
like that,
reasons.
not for the romance, not for religion. It's purely for insurance and financial, kind of legally binding financial stuff.
And knowing the divorce process, you know, where no one goes into a marriage saying, oh, I need to think about the divorce process. But knowing the process now, and you still want to get married, how would you handle that divorce process?
I should never have married my first husband. I think when you're young, there's statistics about this. The first marriages, there's a high divorce rate. In second marriages, it's not so high. Because I think we just understand ourselves more. We understand why we're getting married to the people that we're getting married to. So I would like to think that if and when I do get married again, the likelihood of divorce is not going to be so high because I'm actually going to partner with somebody who's a good match for me. If we were to, I would have, for example, prenup agreements. I think that they're very useful. I think we were having a conversation about this when I came over for dinner, weren't we? I feel like this is our dinner conversation just in this room.
Recorded.
Yeah. No, I
Do women like signing prenups?
I think there's
Don't look at me.
I think
I'm
there's
just
a pop
asking.
culture idea that women are money hungry gold diggers and we hate prenups. But that's just a fabricated.
Blame Kanye for that.
Yeah, that's, I think, a fabricated or something that the very rich, the ridiculously rich and wealthy have to deal with, and us regular people, not so much. I
If
think,
you're earning 5 figures, it's a bit absurd. to get a prenup for agreement, but thank you. Anyway.
But I think a prenup, for me, why I would do it is because I think you make an agreement about how you walk away from each other when you're in love and happy and you like each other.
Yeah.
It's not going to be influenced by negative emotion, by anger, by spite. It's, you've made this with sound mind. I have good feelings towards you. I'm not trying to make you live a bad life. You're not trying to make me live a bad life. This is what we're doing. With our sound mind, we're agreeing that if we were to walk away from each other, this is how we would do it.
Do you feel like there's always one party that feels like they're either emasculated or getting the short end of the stick when there's being spoken of prenups? Because prenups feels like it could be a swear word or like an insult or like a insinuation of gold digging, of, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but
is there emotion?
I think it's a part of that adult conversation which we don't have. So I think a lot of this is why I say the automation of marriage is like a lot of things are unsaid because we just assume that it's romantic love and it's authentic and it's real. The reality is, once you've gone through it, it's such a violent process for someone to experience that they know they would never do it again the same way. And actually, if you advise people to do that up front, it avoids so much impact. Also, people don't talk about the divorce process is a time drain. Like the amount, I think these sessions are an hour and a half, maybe 2 hour sessions.
Yes.
And I did 6. So I'm talking about how much time we had to sit there, not only including prep and stuff. It's such, like, you can't do it at work. You can't be in your job or try to be doing anything practical. You can't be parenting in the background. So it does become a really challenging thing to experience. You have to go into these things with much better provisions. I think the construct works if you've got 2 hyper-religious people who live very standardized existences. It might work better, but I think a lot of the people I know are creatives or gig economists or entrepreneurs or travel a lot, or, you know, if you do any of those things, it makes it that little bit harder to form a marriage. That's because a lot of marriage is about anchoring, and it's about stillness and consistency and reliability. And if you just move a lot, even that gets lost in it all. Like, where do you live? Like, what jurisdiction are you under? It changes the game as to what all those things mean. I did want to quickly jump on something that you said about providing is universal. In essence, we look at what men can provide, but the way you provide, your ability to provide is very specific, which you identified. If you think about how you see men now, what role is... The thing is, even that doesn't even make sense. I'm posing a question of like, what role do men play? But I feel like that's so narrowing in its question. Like, any partner of yours, what is it that you're looking for?
Oh, I choose partners that I think I feel protected by, but I also hope my partners feel protected by me.
What does that look like, as in like a feminine protection? What does that look like?
I think an obvious one is like an emotional, mental safety that I like my partner to feel when in relationship with me.
Yeah. So I can tell you my things, and I feel anchored.
You can tell me. You can trust that I remain curious about how you think. You can trust that you have privacy with me when required. You can trust that there's a safeguarding of you even from my emotions or my mental load. Or there's so there's that type of physical safety. I also expect that my partner feels physically safe.
So you're not going to punch him in the face and hit him with things.
That I'm not gonna be violent towards you, and I'm not gonna invite violence into your experience, even if it doesn't come directly from me. It could be from an angry lover. It could be from... I don't know.
You know what? That's a really... Because I've had some real stinkers in my life, and I think I was sitting there telling someone... By the way, I don't know what happens here, but I go into a stream of consciousness, and somewhere through, I'll go I'll just share a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll be like, that was quite wild. But I've been in a relationship where I was sleeping, and their ex came and climbed the balcony and started banging on the window at like 1 a.m.
That's crazy.
And so I'm like asleep, and I'm actually like naked, and the housemate opens their window, and he comes in through the window into the room. Now, for God,
Still
for
naked.
for gracious, no, it's fine. I'm a strong guy. I'm a good guy. It was all in my favor. Yeah, so it all worked. But when he walked in, he just observed and then just started yelling, not even at me, like past me to her. And I was just like, this could have been so much different. I never forgave the friend that let the person in the window. I refuse to talk to them to this day, by the way, because that could have been so much left up. But the fundamental point of like that safety of even letting me know that there is somebody who feels they can be knocking on your window would be great in advance. I have someone in my life who may knock on the window. I'd be like, I'm going home. So I think like when you talk about the type of safety, we never talk about how men can be safeguarded, because I think men just get sent into war and never really considered that actually I'm only going to send you to war if it's essential, if it's needed. And we don't really consider that as a woman's role. Because I think we obviously try to protect women from...
I think we don't talk about it, but I always consider it. I don't like being around women that I don't feel safe around.
What
would you consider?
like?
Yeah, what does not safe look like for you?
If I share something with you, you're gonna go and tell all your friends. And
Okay, yeah.
Like, some guy might want to beat me up because I'm walking streets with you, or
Yeah.
just all that weird stuff. I'm just like,
The drama.
I don't like women with a lot of drama. In fact, let me reverse. I don't like people that have way too much drama.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a
I'm
people
just
thing.
like, you're going to affect me with that drama, and I can't
Yeah.
sign up for it.
Yeah.
So
But the
I
thing
have
is,
to be a
you
friend
know
from a
why it's
distance.
important to use distinction between men and women in the type of drama? Because we know the guy that rolls with the crew, but he ends up getting into a fight that we now all have to kind of back to some degree. And now there's like revenge attacks, police, there's all sorts of things that can happen. There's a particular type of violence a woman can evoke in terms of motivating people to hate you, to attack you with passion, which is different. And I think like the amount of men who have got into a confrontation because a woman has gone back to a brother, a cousin, or another male friend and said, this guy did this to me, or he said this to me, and created all hell. And you realize that there is some people, this is where it does get generic, people who just create chaos wherever they go. But I think that particular type of violence is some of the worst stuff that I've seen. Like, and again, I've been invoked in that. People have come to me and said, oh, this guy did this to me. And I'm like, no way. Then I'm finding myself changing how I interact with somebody, or I'm now challenging this person. And it happened to me one particular time, and like this person was being called like an abuser, or he was like coming outside my house. He was stalking me. All the big words you can think of were being used for this person, and they were in a public eye to a degree. And I remember being like, look, the number one thing is I don't want to go in and get into your story, but I will make it be clear that you are loved and connected by people. We're not just going to allow you to go through an experience. So I was like, my way of dealing with it is that I will create proximity to him, with him, and subconsciously let him know that like we're aware and we're in a knowing that, but it's not okay, without going into the details of the story. So I did this. I invited him to my house. We sat down with them, and I remember talking to him, and then it didn't add up. And I know people can misrepresent, but it just didn't add up. The experiences that were being communicated to me versus what his experiences were, and he had no awareness yet that it had come from this place. And I was like, actually, I've presented myself into a situation without the knowing of what's going on. And then years went by, and then I got further confirmation that information was incorrect. And actually, it's like we have to be mindful as men, like not to become tools of like this change that we're trying to create, and we don't put our minds to it. And I do think, and unfairly or fairly, I feel like it may impact people more than it benefits. But men have decided that they're not willing to go full on into supporting and protecting women in a way that they need to, because they have a question mark over things, and it doesn't allow them to fully to support these things. So they end up becoming almost barriers to the change, or indifferent when they do need to act. And I think I've spoke to you about this once. It's just like, how do you, this is going into another topic, but please don't go too far into it, but how do you distinguish between when to show up and respond to the need of safety, and when to like, actually, this is not for me and not my scope, and actually I just leave it as it is? Do you have a view, Kimberly?
I have a view. I actually I watched two friends, known them both for about 20 years. They met each other at some event. They started dating, and it went left very quick, to the point that police got involved and and whatnot. And I had to be there thinking I can't take sides, and that. And I heard both their versions of events, and I was just like, cool, I'm just going to be both your friends and not take the other side and just stay out of it. And I think it's kind of strained the relationship that I had with the lady. But my friend, because I've had to create a distance and whatnot, it strained that relationship too, that we're not as close as we were, and I just resent that I was thrown in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And that's how,